Donald Trump's beefs with the media are a defining trait of his campaign. Now he's picking his biggest fight yet by pulling the press credentials of the Washington Post. After the deadly mass shooting in Orlando, Donald Trump called into Fox and Friends and offered this assessment of President Obama and terrorism.
He doesn't get it, or he gets it better than anybody understands.
And Trump added the president
is not tough, not smart, or he's got something else in mind. And the something else in mind, people can't believe it.
Which means what? The Washington Post said Trump suggested Obama was involved in the Orlando shootings, then tweaked its headline to say Trump seemed to suggest a connection. Trump wasn't pleased.
Trail Donald Trump is clashing with the media again, this time revoking press credentials from the Washington Post.
On Facebook, Trump called the Post's original headline dishonest and sad and announced he was revoking the paper's credentials due to incredibly inaccurate coverage and reporting. So if the Post got it wrong, what's the right interpretation?
What do you mean by that?
Well, there are a lot of people that think maybe he doesn't want to get it. I happen to think that he just doesn't know what he's doing.
For the record, the Post wasn't alone in thinking that Trump came close to an accusation of treason.
An allusion to a more nefarious motivation.
Donald Trump, the Republican presumptive nominee, saying that the President of the United States is in cahoots with ISIS.
But why single out the Post? Maybe because Trump doesn't like the paper's scrutiny. In a statement, editor Marty Baron says the Post will continue to cover Donald Trump as it has all along, honorably, honestly, accurately, energetically, and unflinchingly. So, Dan, you've written, I think, a few times for WGBHnews.org, always online, about Donald Trump's media management strategy. What's your take on this latest iteration?
Well, boy, has he picked the wrong editor to mess with. I don't think that Marty Baron is going to be too impressed by the fact that Donald Trump is coming after him. One of the things that really strikes me about this is it's very Nixon-esque. And if you go back to when Richard Nixon was president, the Nixon administration tried to go at the Washington Post in a number of ways. During the Pentagon Papers, they threatened to bring a criminal prosecution, which would have ruined their ability to go into the stock market. During Watergate, there was the infamous threat by a Nixon henchman, John Mitchell, against...
Can we say this on air?
Well, he threatened a body part of then publisher Katharine Graham. And Jeff Bezos, when he bought the Post, said, if I'm ever tested, I hope it doesn't come to this, but I'm willing to put whatever body part is necessary through the ringer to defend the integrity of the Post. What bothers me about this, and I blame myself for this as much as anybody else in the media, Trump has been yanking the credentials of news organizations for months, one after another after another. And it really took the Washington Post, one of the 2 or 3 most important newspapers in the country, for people to really sit up and take notice that he's doing this. We should have taken notice of this all along, and now maybe people will pay more attention to it.
Worth mentioning National Review, BuzzFeed, Politico, Huffington Post.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now, I was thinking at this rate, who's going to be left at these campaign events? It's going to be Fox News, Breitbart, and a 12-year-old blogger. And that's
perfect.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what he wants.
Ironically for Trump, I feel like in some ways that could wind up being good for journalism. The more people you get away from the pack and off reporting their own stories on their own time with their own, the more variety of stories you get, the more investigative work you get. I mean, in a way, you want people to be at these rallies in case there's a riot, which could happen, which has happened. You need some media presence. On the other hand, you don't need a whole pool of stenographers there for a speech that's covered on TV and that's easy to see. So in a way, if this spurs a variety of coverage and deeper coverage, it might be a good thing. Certainly not good for Donald Trump.
Yeah, totally agree. You don't, first of all, as other reporters who've had their press passes yanked have done, you can go in as a citizen and be allowed to move freely.
More freely.
As long as you're kind of clandestine
right,
about your tape recorder, you're not penned into the pen. So I totally agree with that point. And let's please note, the Post had it right about this story. Maybe the initial headline deserved to be tweaked, and they did. But they had it right. This is this guy's MO. He throws out the most slimy, far-fetched insinuation that he can. And it's always other people are saying, or this is what you hear. I'm not saying that. It's good to see him called out on it. It's ridiculous.
So ditto with everybody, but I wanted to follow up with what John said about, I hope that the story does not get lost about what the whole point of this was. It's not just that the Washington Post got their credentials yanked. It's what he was saying. So, I don't want Spotlight to move from that because that was pretty really out there. And that continues to be examined because he has not come back from that, by the way.
In fact, he doubled down on it, sending out a tweet linking to a Breitbart News article that he claimed indicated he was right.
But that's a great point. The bigger story is not the Post's pain or inconvenience. It's what the presumptive Republican nominee is choosing to do with his time. And the kind of slander, I don't know if it's treasonous or not, but the kind of slander he's willing to just throw around and see if any of it sticks. That's an important fact.
Just to follow up on that, though, what's the difference between what Trump said in his sort of passive-aggressive way and what John McCain said in a more direct and aggressive way, saying President Obama is directly responsible for the Orlando...
Oh, it's very different. It's very different.
Well, one difference is he apologized.
Right.
Continue.
Well, I think
he sort of apologized.
No, I think what McCain said was absolutely reprehensible, but nevertheless, he connected some dots. He said Obama's policies gave rise to ISIS.
After he apologized.
And no, he said it initially.
No, I didn't
His
get
apology basically contained the
But
same
the pull
line
quote
of
was the
reasoning.
inflammatory one.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
Well,
Right.
because
And he should have been more careful, don't get me wrong.
Well, and the Trump statement was really based on his birther ideas, not on some
Yes.
kind of critique of foreign policy.
You're
Exactly.
right. Yeah, secret
Yeah.
Muslim, that sort of thing. All right, just a quick parting question. Should those of us who may, I've been credentialed for a Trump event before, should I now think twice about going to the Trump campaign if I have occasion to seek out credentials again?
You should burn your credentials on the air.
Yeah. Well, no, seriously. though.
I'm serious.
Okay, you say burn on the air. Should other, like for John, for example, for you, would you, think twice about asking them for permission to cover?
No. I don't want to make the story about me or any other journalist.
And by the way, I didn't mean to focus. I've wondered this myself, because some people have said that could be a good response.
I mean, you go either way because I think let's not forget Joanna's first thought was, which is that you can get a lot of good information, and those they went back and did stories with all the organizations who've had their credentials pulled, and every one of them said, "Hey, we've done
kept on
great
doing it,
stories."
and the Post has.
Yeah.